It's really interesting. The whole industry, and I'd probably say a big chunk of the world is talking about it right now.
Absolutely.
On it, they DeepSeek came out with their original V3 model, I think late last year, which was largely comparable to some of the OpenAI kind of earlier models to it in Anthropic. But what is really rattling people's minds and their world at the moment is that DeepSeek was able to achieve comparable model performance to some of the biggest models in the world, like OpenAI 4.0 model, at a fraction of the cost.
Yeah.
You know, they were able to achieve these outcomes as well with different lower power chips. And what I think is they really thought about the problems in a really unique way and tried to solve the problems practically. And the result of this is that probably for the first time that a company that is not US centric has created a very powerful model comparable to these models where OpenAI has raised something like over $6 billion in
Yeah.
capital and continues to lose money, according
Yeah.
to Sam Altman. And this kind of company, small company, 200 people based out of China, top
Hedge
minds in the
fund.
world,
Yeah.
hedge fund kind of owned, has come out and met the performance at 20 times less the cost. I think they built R3 at in and around $5 million. Now,
Wild.
that's to be debated
Yeah.
whether or not that was the true cost. I think we have to look at a whole bunch of other things to go into
The
initial
shoulders
model
they're
development.
standing on to achieve that.
Yeah, but also the time period. You know that the $5 million was purely to train the model, not necessarily build, maintain, run reinforcement learning, and essentially doing all of the typical things that you would do with a robust commercial model.
Right.
But nevertheless, it is far less expensive than what it's taken to create commercial models like OpenAI and Anthropic have created.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you for the insight on that one. We'll jump on to the next question. What factors do you believe have enabled DeepSeek to achieve such a rapid advancements in AI? And how might this influence the global AI landscape?
Yeah, yeah. What's the saying? Necessity breeds is the mother of all ingenuity, right?
Absolutely.
And I think this is the case of it. So what I, in my understanding and looking at the open source model is that, what DeepSeek has been able to do is just think really differently about how to achieve comparable commercial outcomes than some of the big models, right? I think a lot of people when they start to think about LLMs, my take on it and how I think about it is these are the nuclear power plants of intelligence of the future. And LLMs are in the picks and shovel business, right?
Yeah.
So they're helping us get intelligent outcomes, right? And they're a provider of that. Now, the world was using a gold-plated shovel to be able to get this
Absolutely.
through NVIDIA chips, through very large high-parameter model training. And DeepSeek has come through and said, well, we built a shovel, but it's made out of steel, and it moves just as much dirt as the gold one out of it. And so by thinking about more practically about how they build the models, and I think my takeaway is probably three areas that the DeepSeek, at least upon first blush, the DeepSeek was able to think more practically was the first one was when they looked at the total number of computational horsepower that's being applied to every query. OpenAI uses essentially high precision, so they used to go to 32 decimal places when they do their probability scoring on some of the prompts, whereas R1 only uses 8, and they were able to achieve largely 90% of the accuracy. So it's the first kind of outcome is precision versus accuracy.
Back to that
And
gold shovel.
they shovel the dirt. They're shoveling dirt, right? And do you need to have your shovel with cambered edges to the nanometer, or do you need to have it largely flat with
Shovel
a little bit of a lip?
shaped, yeah.
Shovel shaped, exactly.
Right, yeah.
And can it move that intelligence in this case, right? The computational horsepower. And from my review and reading, it's like that saves 75% of the compute efficiency out of it. So that's kind of number one, right?
Yeah.
Number two is really looking at the LLMs today, which are not R1. They're my take on it is they're kind of like these all-knowing oracles. So OpenAI has 1.8 trillion parameters that it looks across, right? That's absolutely enormous. And so that means OpenAI is an engineer, it's a salesperson, it's a marketer, it's a physicist, it's all these things, right? And that takes a lot of horsepower to be able to go across with every single query or every single token that's coming across. And so, but DeepSeek, instead of saying, well, I'm going to create one essentially entity that is all knowing across all professions is I'm going to create a whole bunch of smaller models to help me train that are experts, right? So I'm going to have one model that's a physicist, one model that's a marketer, one model that's a salesperson. And when you look at R1, it has roughly 63 billion parameters, right? And 163 billion parameters against the 1.8 trillion.
Right.
But it only uses 67 or 63 at any one time. So it's extremely efficient when you're running those parameters. So that again lowers the cost of it, right?
Absolutely.
And then number 3, which is I think kind of the second part of your question is like how can it impact things, is it's open source.
Yeah.
And all these other models are closed source that are not profitable at the moment. And that, you know, when you see R1's benchmark performance, which doesn't actually necessarily mean it's commercial grade performance.
Correct.
When you apply it to commercial applications or agent development, there's still a layer that needs to sit on top of that. But if intelligence is the electricity of the future, intelligence got a whole bunch cheaper.
Absolutely. And the implications of that are being felt around the world.
Well, in the stock markets at the moment, because, you know, a whole bunch of people have bought,
Rattled a few chains.
well, they've been investing in gold shovels,
Right.
and
Wait,
now there's an alternative out there. And probably the other thing that's quite interesting out of this is like, well, R1 is open source and it's public.
Yep.
So this is ushering in what I would think is a new wave of high performing, low cost models coming
Absolutely.
out. So
Absolutely.
not necessarily it's like the clones are coming out by any means, because every model has different
it's
parameters.
not a clone of a gold shovel, right? It's
Yeah, they're all trained differently, right? And they have different use cases and different strengths and weaknesses out of that. But we don't see a GPT-5 on the horizon at the moment, and that AI moves extremely fast. So, you know, in that short window of time, I would expect to watch this space and kind of proliferation of not only closed models but open models that are highly compute efficient, and that is going to, I guess, the moat that's been created by Western economies is kind of quickly shallowing.
It's quickly gone. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. That's bloody great. Okay, we'll jump into the next one. A bit of shift of tact away from DeepSeek and back onto OpenAI. Also news that came out last week, OpenAI Operator.
Yeah.
So throw a question there. So what sets OpenAI's Operator apart from other task automation tools?
Yeah. Let me first start with the things that I really like and love about Operator.
So long as we also touch on the things you don't like about it.
Well,
just to keep it non-biased. Yeah.
Yes, my review, my 360 review.
Go for it.
So what ChatGPT I think has done really, really well is, one, raise capital, number one. Number two is they've built a user interface and introduced artificial intelligence really elegantly to the masses, right? And I don't need to go over the stats that everyone would probably know who's watching this video. All one person on it.
I think it's two.
Two, okay. All right. But those two people already know that it's quite successful in monetizing, not making profitable, but monetizing intelligence on it. I think they've transformed what is a highly complex thing in terms of like how do you interact with artificial intelligence into something really simple, which is a single text box and asking it, you know, what do you want effectively? How can I help you? And some of the advancements they've done in voice and interoperability, right, on mobile devices and in other areas, their GPTs have been great.
Absolutely. Having it talk back to you, you couldn't tell it was an AI model.
Yeah.
It had the inflections, the pauses, the breathing.
Yeah.
It was an experience.
Yeah. My ChatGPT sounds like the coolest person I've ever met, to be completely honest. So in addition to me wanting to be my ChatGPT, so those are the things that they've really done well with it. So, you know, I watched, like everyone else, their demo of Operator late last week, and you know, what I saw was a continuation of those kind of really strong UX positioning and kind of general understanding features going out to the marketplace. Kind of a side note, what I thought was funny as someone was they were trying to do the demo of OpenTable. I know it was a live stream, so I'm sure there was a couple trolls who were trying to book, unfortunately for them, but they did really well, trying to book the same tables.
I saw that. Get one at 7 o'clock, 7's gone. Gotta go to 7:45.
Yeah, exactly. So I think they've done really well in introducing those things. Where I have a pause would be, well, let's think about what are the consequences of the operator outcomes that are going to be utilized by millions of people today. Okay, and let's look at OpenTable, right?
Right.
So what I would do for OpenTable as a consumer is if it's no cost to me,
I can
for
see where
20
you're
bucks a
going.
month,
Yeah, in my head, I
I'm
can
going to
see
tell
where you're
my
going.
operator to book me the best tables at all the restaurants anytime I want to go continually. So I want to look at all the prices all the time to be able to find out what is what's the best flights for me. And one of the interesting things that gave me pause when I looked at Operator was it was all essentially web-based activity that was going on and not API to API.
Yeah, you noted also throughout there that it was a mouse and keyboard input only.
Yeah, which I get for the UX and building trust within the user on it. The view of being in control and being able to take control. I thought that was pretty cool from a UX perspective.
Very slick.
But from an efficiency perspective, so let's think about any business who now wants to build on top of Operator, who now has access to hundreds of millions of people. Like, don't get me wrong, that's a really sexy thing. But now you have AI agents which are going and driving enormous amounts of web traffic to your browser, of which much of it is useless. It may be useless, I should say. I shouldn't pontificate too much on that. And so I think when I think about the future of AI, OpenAI has introduced us to this concept of agents or operators, as they say, but it's only half-baked. And because you need the other half, which is another agent to deal with this onslaught of AI agency, right? Coming out of it, or agentic activities. And I think that's what we're missing at the moment, and with the true opportunity that artificial intelligence or agentic activity provides us, which is AI to AI connection. And that's what when I saw the demo with 4.0, I was not surprised, because it makes sense from a large mass scaling perspective that they're going to. But I thought it was a bit of a tragedy, because when I think about all of these new voices that are coming out, and agentic voices, and that allows you to make calls to customers, right? Of course, and do amazing things that a sales SDR could do.
I have a Google phone. It screens all of my calls. It's been a godsend.
Yeah. Well, that's part of it, right? So that would be the other side. But all of these SDR tools that are going in there calling customers, that just creates more call spam, right?
Exactly.
It's not really getting to the true problem that's coming out with that businesses face, which is, well, I want to have targeted customers who want to engage with my product.
Yeah.
And now all that creates
Not
is
just a
more
broad
calls,
smorgasbord
or more table bookings,
Yeah.
or more flight queries, or more cake orders, whatever the small business is that now is
that
getting
then
this.
cancels last minute. Or,
Yeah, well, this onslaught of AI inquiry coming in. So maybe that's what I said. Like, you need AI inquiry, which is Operator today, but you also need AI response, right? Which is from the business side.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Thank you. Jumping on to question number 4 here of our list today. Let me just dig a little bit into here. So how do you assess the potential impact of AI agents like Operator on daily digital interactions? And I think we've just touched on that a little bit. And the broader implications for user autonomy and control.
Sure. Well, I think we talked a lot about B2C, which I think OpenAI has done smartly by approaching that first. But I'm going to read through your question, and maybe I'll take it as a B2B question. Right. So how are we going to use Operator or agentic agent development for that? I think most people will go for making their life easier and making it simpler, right? Which, again, I think is a little bit of a tragedy because a lot of tasks that people do today potentially may have high value, but they may see it seen as an administrative burden, like writing a good note to a customer, B2B customer, I would say, or really thinking about what happened in the meeting and making your own notes of that meeting, not just having a summary. I'm guilty of that. I don't know you. You're an excellent. A man of excellence. So I know you read all of your transcripts from top to tail for it to come through for meeting summaries. But I think from kind of to put a point on that is that I think the shift that Operator will bring to people's mind is a positive one. So I want to call that out right away. But the application, it will be a bit short-sighted when we first come out there. And so, but that happens with any technology, I think, new technology that's coming out. you're too young for this, but when the iPhone came out, there was this great app called the beer drinking app that you could
I'm not
tilt
too
it
young.
forward and you could drink the beer.
I was like 15 when that came
Oh,
out.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
no.
all right, okay. I'm not gonna tell you how old I was, but
No,
that was a novelty item.
it had some great apps
Yeah,
on that
there,
original iPhone.
there was a lot of novelty.
Yes,
That's the
yes, absolutely.
point of the story,
Absolutely.
and that ushered in an era of actually productivity. There was a time where everyone had an app. You were like a grain company, and you had an app for
Yeah.
your one customer, or God knows what company, God knows what you did, but
Yeah.
you still had to have an app for it. We're gonna go through that era, I think, again,
Yeah.
but hopefully that's as short as possible as we usher in this kind of true AI to AI opportunity that's coming about,
Right.
and people start to think in a 360 way around their agentic teams and how those agentic teams are being built. And again, if you think about an AI first business, it looks very different in my mind than a business today. And so we have to go through that evolutionary pain, right?
It's like
to
looking
be-
through a glass staircase. You can see the top, but you know you're going to have to walk up it.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Jumping on to the next question there. What do you think these changes mean for Decidr? And how do you see them shaping the role of AI in business?
Yeah, I think it's very good for Decidr, and I'll tell you why. So number one is Decidr is a productivity layer that sits on top of these LLMs. Okay, so again, my take on these large language models is that, or probably first before I go into that, is I think the majority of the industry, or let's just call it mass media, they confuse what an LLM's role is versus the outcome of it. LLMs today are fantastic at responding to a prompt. They fundamentally work by predicting the next word in a sequence, right? They do not understand what you are asking them, right? They simply are running a probability model. R1, another great thing that came out of R1 was in OpenAI and the other major models, they run a probability after every single word. And what R1 does, again, necessity is the mother of ingenuity. Right. They couldn't run the computational horsepower because they didn't have the chips. So what they did was they started grouping tokens together.
Yeah.
And instead, they found that they got 90% accuracy by grouping them together, and so instead of doing one by one. But that goes back to R1. But the point of that is that really these LLMs do not fundamentally understand what people are asking them. That's number one. Right. Number two is they are general models. They do have some lean towards specialization, and I think we'll see more of them become more specialized. But you still have to take this model. It's like an engine, right? And you're building a car around it. There are still costs to build around that car. You still have to take your own data and put it in. You still have to train that agent to do something, right? Whether it be directly or agentically. And those costs are very high. So Decidr's, what we call like our agentic orchestration studio, or our productivity layer is a way to think about it, is, our architecture has eliminated all of those really high costs that go into creating a single agent, which is hundreds of $1,000s or millions of dollars just to create one. So we've been able to eliminate those costs with our unique technology. But underneath that technology, we are LLM agnostic. Yep. So I can say today that we have R1, we have V3, we have Claude via Anthropic, we have OpenAI 4.0 and all their different deviations or variations of that. Yep. And so we give our customers the choice to be able to choose which one they want to use based on their cyber posture, based on their comfort and trust. In addition, they can even create their own private LLMs on top of a R1, for example. Absolutely. And house in their own federated system. So I think it's really great. What I say to prospects and customers today is, Decidr is the dumbest it will ever be right now, which is already pretty amazing. But advances like in R1, they make all the intelligence even more intelligent, if that's, I don't have a better way to put it, but all the boats rise as the tide rises. Yeah. And so this is a really good thing for Decidr, because not only does it allow more diverse access to more diverse views on intelligence, the second is it lowers costs. And what's great about the Decidr platform, it is already highly compute efficient. So this just makes it even cheaper on it. And it gives customers more choice around what they value as important. That could be the open source nature, that could be the customization, that could be the scalability, that could be the continuity, right, of it. And which I don't think a lot of people have discussed yet about R1 versus OpenAI, right?
It seems to be rarely discussed. It's like, get agent to do task A for me. And rarely do people come back and go, can I get the same agent to do a follow-up task?
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, correct, absolutely. So, you know, the inference, its ability or perplexity score, its ability to kind of continually do that score at high rates, rates of success, I should say. But I think that you know, a lot of companies have yet, because it's just so brand new, you have that choice between a closed model and an open model. Like, open model is great, has high performance, but it's an open model. You need to build teams around this thing to be able to manage and maintain. And when you're having it do more and more things, right? Especially, you know, don't get me wrong, like, it's 1.8 trillion parameters versus 167 billion parameters. That's still a bucket load of parameters, right?
Absolutely.
And so the chances for hallucination, its inference level, which is how accurate it is at doing a task on a continuous basis, those still has to be managed and built by teams, right? Which cost muchos dineros.
Right, and that's probably the piece that companies aren't considering when they look at GPTs costing me, enterprise license, $200 a month. And they go, well, this thing's free. And you go, well, it's not free. There is a cost associated.
Yes, there is a cost associated. There is, of course, time, expensive resources. And,
all expensive.
But it's also, you know, again, going back to continuity, really important thing that I think people should be thinking about. It is, wow, my agentic agent can do something for me today, but they aren't omnipotent. They are omnipresent, but they are fallible, right? And your business does change over time. So that means you're going to have to assign humans to do stuff, you know, to maintain them. So there is this hidden cost that people don't understand. And kind of getting back to the original question, and my take on it is that why is this good for Decidr? It lowers our costs to serve. So Decidr becomes both cheaper and more intelligent, because underlying LLMs, as they get smarter, Decidr gets smarter. But it really starts to open up opportunities for businesses to start to think, well, if it is cheaper, why can I only afford to get one agent doing one customer service thing? Right? Why can't I have more agentic teams and tasks across my organization? And with the exception of Decidr, your only choices are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and creating every new agent. So today, it's actually more expensive to create an agent than it is to hire somebody to do the task. Right?
Absolutely.
That will go down, but it's a kind of it's a 1.5 to 1 ratio, meaning it's 1.5 times more expensive to get an AI to do an agentic activity than a human. That will inevitably go down, but it's still not at the scale opportunities that, you know, even at a BPO level that you're hitting, where it's the economics are starting to stack up.
Yeah, wonderful. Great. One last question, I promise, and then we'll let you go. So last question here, where do you see the biggest opportunities for AI to change how businesses work in the next 5 years?
That's a big question.
And we've touched on quite a lot so far, but
I'm going to try and make this short and sweet. I think like where I start in the greatest opportunities is kind of moving away from efficiency and into productivity. And so I would, if I was a business and I knew what I knew about AI, I'd start thinking about how I could grow my business with different economics than I can today on it. So I think most likely the opportunity in the next 5 years is a long time. Maybe I might change that question.
I mean,
like, how about 6 months? And
seeing
then
how quickly the landscape has moved in the last 2 years.
I think the biggest opportunity is probably looking at customers differently. You know, having AI, like some of the benefits of AI is has perfect memory. It's fully networked. Right. Using the Decidr platform, it has access to all of your data at any one time. And I think that means that it can have a better view of the customer than any human in your organization could, and that view of the customer will actually allow this, what everyone has been talking about for 20 years now, but this kind of era of personalization. And for the first time, you actually have the horsepower, right, which is the intelligence to do the personalization for it. And I think in most cases, I can tell you with the Decidr platform, because of the horizontal nature, you can do these things. But largely there'll be competitors that'll come in that would compete against Decidr. So I'm going to take your 1 year to 5 year timescale,
Sure.
and that so that'll usher in this kind of new wave of customer centricity
Yes.
Around it, which is inhuman, and I mean that in a good way.
Yep.
That it can think about the individual customer, which if you're any small business owner and I think our brains can only handle 125 people. Like that's literally how our DNA is hardwired around community.
Back to the old tribal groups.
Yeah, we can't remember more than 100. Like I can't remember 25 people, let alone 125. But AI can.
Yeah.
Right, and AI can provide those personal experiences to move and elevate these business owners and these people to spending more time on the impact that their products and services are having, the reasons why. You've heard me say, like, finding that je ne sais quoi, finding that X factor in your business, and then having AI be the intelligent team that's taking that and making it relevant to every single one of your prospects or customers. So what I see, answering your question, is I'm excited by the opportunity of personalization that AI can bring, and what companies like Decidr and other companies that are working towards to be able to provide that in an economically sound way to every business, and not just the enterprise companies, because there is a risk, right? Because if only enterprise companies can afford to build their own agents, and those agents vastly outperform humans, I guess that's what's going to happen. Right?
Tell me. I feel like you're about to tell me.
It kind of looked like Blade Runner, right?
Yeah.
And I just watched Judge Dredd with Sylvester Stallone.
The OG Judge Dredd.
It's a great movie. He's very sweaty the entire time, or oily.
It's a dystopian future with climate change.
It is, and he's dressed by Versace, so there's a lot of cod pieces. It's very funny, but very late '90s.
Love it.
Late '90s, but both movies, they're great in their own ways. But what they demonstrate is kind of this like highly concentrated dystopian commercial future. And not to be overly kind of dramatic or anything like that, but AI is pretty powerful. We're finding it with our customers to be extremely transformative. So if enterprises I would expect that enterprises are feeling some of the same feelings that we are.
Yes.
About it, and how excited they are about it. So I want to give that to everybody.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for your time, David.
Pleasure, Jack.
I hope the guests down the line and Sylvester Stallone, if you did hear that Judge Dredd reference, please reach out. We would love to have you. Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you for joining us here today at the Decidr Studio. I'm Jack, and it's been a pleasure diving into the future of AI and innovation with you. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and stay tuned for more episodes where we explore how agentic AI is transforming the way we work and lead. See you again.